like to
I
share
never
with you
thought
all
I'd
today
question the life I
is
built,
the
the woman I
importance
loved,
of
the truth
investing
I
for the
trusted.
future,
But now, as I sit in this
investing for
silence,
what is to come,
retracing every
not
word,
what is
every
already here.
glance, every moment we shared, I realized the truth was never what I thought it was. It crept up behind me, like a shadow stretching at dusk, imperceptible at first, until I was swallowed whole. We met 10 years ago. At first, everything about her captivated me. Her laughter wasn't just sound, it was warmth, color, gravity. She had this way of looking at me like she saw something no one else did. I was lost in that look, willing to believe in it. And I did. I believed in her more than I believed in anything. We moved quickly. Passion has a way of convincing you its wisdom, and within a year we were married. The early days were good. Better than good. She was thoughtful in ways that startled me. A handwritten note tucked into my jacket pocket. A favorite song playing when I walked in from a long day. Her touch, gentle, knowing, felt like home. People would look at us and say we were lucky, and I always nodded, thinking they had no idea just how lucky I was. But luck, I've learned, is often a temporary illusion. It started small, that's how these things always start. A shift in her gaze when I walked into a room. A pause before she answered certain questions. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was tired, stressed, projecting. I wanted to believe that. Needed to, but some truths don't stay buried, no matter how deep you dig the grave. One night, I came home earlier than expected. She hadn't heard me come in. I stood just outside the bedroom door and heard her on the phone. Her voice was low, urgent. I couldn't make out every word, but I caught enough. No, he doesn't know. Not yet. I stepped back into the hallway, my heart thudding like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. When I walked into the room a few moments later, she smiled at me like nothing was wrong, like my world hadn't just started cracking beneath my feet. I didn't ask her who she was talking to. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to understand more before I pulled the thread. Over the following weeks I watched her more closely. The way she'd lock her phone the moment I entered the room. The sudden errands that couldn't wait. The way her eyes would flicker, just slightly, when I asked harmless questions. She wasn't pulling away in the usual sense. She was still affectionate, still present, still present, still present. And that was the strangest part. If she had grown cold, angry, distant, I might have assumed something mundane. But this was something else. One Saturday, she told me she was going to meet an old friend from college. She looked relaxed, almost carefree, like she had nothing to hide. But I followed her. I know how that sounds, like something a paranoid man would do, but I had to know. I drove a few cars behind her, careful not to get too close. She parked outside a small cafe on the edge of town and went inside. I waited. 15 minutes passed before someone else arrived. A man. He was tall, sharply dressed, and there was something too familiar about the way he greeted her. Not in the way lovers might. No embrace, no touching, but there was something shared between them. A history. He handed her a small envelope. She opened it, glanced at the contents, then nodded. She didn't smile. Not once. The meeting lasted less than 20 minutes. They left separately. I waited until the man was gone, before I went into the cafe. The envelope was still on the table. She must have forgotten it in her rush. I picked it up. Inside were several photographs, grainy, black and white, surveillance images. One of a house I didn't recognize, another of a man's face, a timestamp in the bottom corner. The most recent was only 3 days old. I put the photos back in the envelope and returned it to the table. I didn't know what I was looking at, or why she had them, but I knew I couldn't ask. Not yet. She was living a second life right in front of me, and I had no idea what role I played in it. That night, I watched her sleep, peaceful like nothing in the world could touch her. I wanted to wake her up, to demand answers, to shake the truth out of her, but I didn't. Instead I lay awake, wondering how many lies can fit inside a marriage before it collapses. The next morning, she acted like everything was normal, made coffee, kissed my cheek, talked about repainting the guest room. I nodded along, trying to mirror her ease, but inside I was unraveling. I took a personal day from work and drove to the address in one of the photos. It was a modest house, tucked away in a quiet neighborhood. A mailbox leaned crookedly on its post. A swing creaked in the backyard. I watched from across the street for over an hour. No one came in or out. I was about to leave when I saw a curtain shift upstairs. Just a small movement, but enough to confirm someone was inside. I didn't go to the door. I wasn't ready. I needed more. Back home, I started searching through our things, something I never imagined I'd do. Her drawers, her files, her emails. I hated myself for it, but the need to know burned hotter than my guilt. Hidden in a shoebox at the back of the closet was a stack of documents, medical records, court filings. Most of it didn't make sense, names I didn't recognize, locations we'd never been. But one page made my blood run cold. It was a birth certificate, and she was listed as the mother. The child's name meant nothing to me. I stared at it, unable to process. The date of birth was from before we met. Years before, she had a child she never told me about. I sat there for what felt like hours, the room spinning around me. I tried to recall every conversation we'd had about the past. She had always been vague about her early 20s, said they were a blur, that she traveled a lot. I believed her. Of course I did. When she came home that evening, I confronted her. I didn't plan to. I thought I'd keep collecting pieces until I saw the whole picture. But something in me snapped. I held up the birth certificate and asked her, "What is this?" She froze, not with guilt, not with panic, with something colder, something rehearsed. "Where did you find that?" she asked quietly. I told her. She sat down across from me, folded her hands in her lap, and took a long breath. Then she told me everything. The child was hers, a boy, born when she was barely out of school. The father was someone she trusted, someone who vanished when she told him. She kept the pregnancy a secret from most people. Her parents sent her away to have the baby. After he was born, they arranged for him to be raised by a distant cousin. The boy never knew she was his mother. She visited sometimes, pretending to be a friend of the family. I didn't understand. "Why didn't you ever tell me?" She looked at me with eyes that had seen too much. "Because it wasn't supposed to matter anymore. I wasn't supposed to be a part of his life." But something changed, she said. "A few months ago, the cousin died suddenly. There was no next of kin. The boy, now a teenager, had nowhere to go, and legally she was still his mother. That's why she'd been meeting the man at the cafe. A lawyer. That's why the surveillance photos, private investigators confirming details, trying to build a custody case. She'd planned to tell me. She just didn't know how. I didn't speak for a long time. I couldn't. The truth was too big, too heavy. I thought about the boy, about how he must feel, alone, abandoned, confused. I thought about her, how she must have carried this secret, this guilt, for years. I didn't know whether to feel betrayed or heartbroken. Over the next few days, we barely spoke. I wandered through the house like a stranger. Every photo on the wall, every piece of furniture, every memory, suddenly it all felt built on sand. She tried to reach me, but I couldn't meet her eyes. I was still trapped in the echo of the lie. But eventually, something shifted. One night, she sat beside me, not speaking, just holding my hand, and I let her, because love, real love, isn't about perfection. It's about choosing someone, even when the truth is messy, ugly, hard. A week later, we met the boy. He looked nothing like her, but his eyes, they had the same depth, the same storm behind them. He was quiet, unsure. She introduced me as her husband, not his father, not a replacement, just someone she trusted. We talked for hours, about nothing and everything. I watched her with him, saw a tenderness I'd never known before, a fierce, aching love that had been buried too long. And in that moment, I understood. She hadn't lied because she didn't love me. She lied because she didn't know how to love herself through the shame. Now every day is a step, a small fragile step, towards something new, something honest. I still think about those weeks when the truth was a ghost between us, but I don't regret walking through that darkness, because on the other side, I found something real. Not perfect, but real, and maybe that's enough.